So,
Submerge the device in liquid, even partially. Close
this should be fun. I should probably leave for this, huh? This seems kind of dangerous. You guys can do this without me. Uh-oh. Oh. Let's do it. Yeah.
Begone, thought.
Hello. Is there grapefruit in real life? Yeah, it's me. I'm that. How should... Oh, this is... this is kind of amazing and kind of dumb. Are you guys ready for this? Oh man. What a great ending. Alright, we're not done though. That's it.
Join me for an adventure, oh, much like any other, with twists and turns and plot devices, words and wonder. Now my advice is listen close. What makes this story different is the teller and the told. This one's ours and it's waiting to unfold. So come be merry with me. Yeah. Oh, come be merry with me. Come on, be merry with me. Join me for an adventure, oh, much like any other, with twists and turns and plot devices, words and wonder. Now my advice is listen close. What makes this story different teller and the toll. This one's ours and it's waiting to unfold. Well, hello guys. Hang on, let me get some ambience going for us. Welcome to another edition of Merry Mitch. I'm feeling a little bit, I don't know, just a little stressed, but regardless, I'm trying to give myself some grace and put myself at ease a little bit. Yeah, no, I imagine doing some reading tonight will be one of the best things I can do to calm the nerves. I worked my butt off over at practice tonight, and it went quite well. My ankle is finally strengthening up quite a bit. I've been more careful on it. I've learned better kind of where my limits are when it comes to my ankle, and so I think it's actually strengthening practice by practice. So soon enough I'll be back to doing all the stuff I was doing before and learning new stuff to boot. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm gonna keep on giving my best at practices. The reason today kind of stunk was because this morning, you know, and last night, like I allowed the stream to go all the way to, like, what was it, 3 or 4 hours, and I let myself stay up, like, not crazy late, but, you know, I went to bed at, like, what was it, 1 a.m. Or something along those lines. But that was because I planned around what I thought was a free week for me, as in no work. But there was a miscommunication with my boss and I, where she had told me about it earlier, like about 2 weeks ago, saying, hey, like, there's not going to be that many kids at the camp for the week of the 27th, and we're going to take you off of the roster of people working that week. But I so then I replied and I was like, oh, cool, so that's the third week then? Just saying off the top of my head, and she said, yes, that is the third week of the 27th, and when in reality the third week starts today, the 20th. So I did not have this week off, and thankfully they were able to find somebody to cover for me. In fact, like, they didn't even try to contact me, like, when I didn't realize I had messed up. But they texted me at like noon saying, hey, we got your shift covered, all good to go. They weren't even wondering like what happened. They just said, hey, like, you're good to not come in. And I was like, oh, okay. I gave like what happened to them anyways, to, you know, at least let them know the reason why I messed up. But yeah, it just stunk. I was even happy because I have like a group therapy thing that I do on Monday mornings that normally, if I have work, I'm not able to do since I'm gone by 8:30 latest. Yeah, I'm glad it worked out, and thankfully Taylor is a diligent boss and was able to problem solve very quickly and get things sorted out without even needing to contact me, which, you know, says a lot about her abilities to problem solve. So good on her, but still it left me with some feelings of shame and guilt, you know, that I carried with me through part of the day.
And then, I'm accepting as we go on, or as I go on. Thankfully, there's a thankfully and an unfortunately here, where part of me not being able to make it there, or me messing up and not making it there today, means that the person that covered for me today is now covering for me for the whole week. Because of COVID regulations, there has to be consistency in who is working. So I no longer get my full 9 to 4 shift, but they still offered up, hey, if you want to, since Jamie was the cleaner and she had to take on your spot, you can now, if you like, take on the 9 to 12:30 slot. So I still get some hours, thankfully, but it's a mess of a situation. All because I didn't bother to check a calendar, dude. Rick. But regardless, I still tried to make the most out of the day. Enjoyed like the the first part of it with the group therapy, and then tried to relax and decompress after the weekend. Was working on getting some softwares downloaded onto my Mac, which I do the music creation on. I'm going to try out some different, because I have a subscription to the East West Instruments, so I'm going to try out some of the other instrument packs that I have not used yet. So I was trying to get all that downloaded. I also have been trying to download my VODs from Twitch, but the software that I use to do that is failing me, which is a little bit worrying because it will sometimes work, but sometimes doesn't. So we may lose a couple of VODs, and I'm really hoping we don't, but I fear that may be what happens. I'll look into some other venues of how to download. Can you guys hear that? Sorry, I do apologize. It appears that my roomies are watching some sort of gun movie. What up, Comet? How you doing, dude? But yeah, all that to say, I had a bit of a stressful day, and it finished with like a big, I don't know, well, I'm grateful for my practice, because honestly it allowed me to focus in on a singular thing, and allow me to kind of work out my frustrations and my feelings of shame and guilt and whatnot. But it did wear me out quite a lot, so we're gonna do a quick stream here, a relaxing one, do a little bit of story time, and then I'm gonna hit the hay so that I can get up all the earlier tomorrow and make sure I'm there on time for work. Nice. I'm glad you're doing good, man. I just went through my whole spiel of how my day was, so I won't repeat in full, but just know I've had a bit of a stressful day, and now I'm looking forward to ending it with some story time. So let's see. Last we left off. Yeah, I figured. Last we left off in Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth. Our hero had gone into an orientation for his new school. He'd only got into it because his mom, Sally Jackson, was dating one of the teachers there at the school who had vouched for Percy despite him being kicked out of every single school he has ever attended. He got in, and unfortunately, whereas before it at least took him throughout most of the school year to get kicked out, this one, at orientation, something went wrong. He was approached by these vampiress cheerleaders who were not just vampires, but seemed to have goat legs and I forget what other features, but they were more than just vampires and were apparently the creatures that vampires were based upon. They attacked Percy and Rachel Elizabeth Dare, who, against all the odds, the girl that he met way back when at the Hoover Dam, turns out she lives in the area and was going to the same school that Percy was planning on attending. So she was there with him when the vampires attacked, and in fact, she was the one that hinted him off to them being what they are, the vampires. Because she has the ability to see through the mist, despite being immortal. Not immortal, a mortal. Thankfully, he was able to get out of there with his life, even though apparently the head cheerleader was a much more dangerous monster than the cheerleader that had attacked him. So he barely got out of there. He met up with Annabeth, who was close by outside of the school, seemingly waiting for him since they had a date after the orientation that, of course, was immediately disrupted and had to be put on the back burner because of the crummy circumstances. So they get on their way and get on back to camp, and believe... Oh, that's right. There was a number of things going on at camp, one of which involved Grover. Grover apparently, after hearing Pan's voice, seemingly got like a prank call, because though Pan had said, "I'm waiting for you," he didn't give a good idea as to where he was. So Grover has been struggling to find him, and the Council of the Cloven Elders are getting upset with him. We also found out that Grover now has a girlfriend. Cool stuff, right? Raise your hand if you thought that would happen. Raise your hand if you had hope that that would happen. They went on, and thankfully, Grover was given more time, but only a week's more time, I believe, to actually locate Pan. There was also a brief encounter through a dream, I believe, where Percy saw Nico, the kid that he had told about his sister's death, who had freaked out, caused a great crevice to erupt in the earth to kill off some skeletons who had chased them, and then ran away, not to be seen again until now. Percy saw him in a dream, and he was camping by the river Styx, in the underworld, being talked to by some other figure, seemingly a ghost. There was a discussion, I believe, of how to get his sister back, right? And the ghost told him, "Hey, there is a way. I know I've been failing you so far, but there is a way. A soul for a soul." And he said, "But I've already offered up my own life." And he said, Up. Can't offer your own life. It's got to be something else, or someone else. Someone who has cheated death, who is owed to the underworld. And so Percy believes that person most likely going to be him. So Nico may be after our number one hero, Percy, but we will see soon enough. And yeah, that is where we left off. Nico D'Angelo would be looking for me, was the last line that we had. Cool beans. So, hang on. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna text my roomies, see if they can turn it down just a little. I'm glad you like it. Oh, wait, what? Hang on. What'd you do to the emote? Oh, I see. It appears the book is now wearing sunglasses. Dude, the book don't care. Book's just chilling. What's up, Mobbin? Welcome, dude. You're just in time. We're about to get into the reading. I hope you're doing well, man. I haven't seen you in a while, but I really do hope you've been feeling good. Hey, Coleman. The flip is good. The flip is good. I'm well, how are you? I went through kind of, my day and how I was at the start of the stream, but give you a brief, summary. I had a mishap with work, that caused some stress and some feelings of guilt on my end due to a mistake I made, so, was dealing with that and, working to accept that throughout the day, but I still tried to make the most of the day, installing some new softwares into my computer, and then having my tumbling and trampoline practice at 4:30, which that was honestly a blessing to the day, because I was able to go there and work out my issues through crazy flips, which is, in my personal opinion, one of the best ways I can do that. So that was super fun, and my ankle has been giving me trouble, but I'm much more aware now of my limits and how best to, handle my ankle and make sure that it's actually growing stronger and that I'm not degrading its strength or risking a re-injury. So my ankle's getting stronger, so that's a plus side to the day. And I had a yummy dinner. It was some leftovers, so but they were some darn good leftovers. Some curry that I made last night. But now, I'm excited to finish off the day with a little bit of story time. I feel that it'll be a relaxing experience. Unless something wild and crazy happens in these chapters, which we never know. Riordan does have a way of just really jumping right into the action with these books. Yeah, thank you, Mobbin. I appreciate it, man. And hey, Lay, welcome. Glad to see you're here. A strong ankle. Sound nice. Yeah, dude, I still feel the strain on it, but it's getting stronger. It's getting used to them flips again. The one thing that I'm majorly struggling with right now at practice, though, is layouts. Layouts are immensely hard for me to fathom at the moment. They're where you do the flip, but your body is like a backflip, but your body is straight the whole time. Straight as an arrow. It's the weirdest flip that I've ever had to learn how to do, and it is, or so far at least, and it is something else. I'm slowly getting it though. I'm slowly getting it. It's all about like body positioning and really technique more than anything. Got the power for it. Just need to, or just the thing to do now is, yeah, get the positioning right. Well, let's go ahead and read, shall we? Let me see if my tea is cooled off enough to sip. Yeah, just right. All right. Now I'm ready. So, this is Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan. Read by yours truly. 3. We play tag with scorpions. The next morning, there was a lot of excitement at breakfast. Apparently, around 3 in the morning, an Ethiopian draken had been spotted at the borders of camp. I was so exhausted, I slept right through the noise. The magical boundaries had kept the monster out, but it prowled the hills, looking for weak spots in our defenses. And it didn't seem anxious to go away until Lee Fletcher from Apollo's cabin led a couple of his siblings in pursuit. After a few dozen arrows lodged in the chinks of the draken's armor, it got the message and withdrew. "It's still out there," Lee warned us during announcements. "Oh, it's still out there," Lee warned us during announcements. 20 arrows in its hide, and we just made it mad. The thing was 30 feet long and bright green. Its eyes. He shuddered. "You did well, Lee." Chiron patted him on the shoulder. "Everyone stay alert, but stay calm. This has happened before." "Aye," Quintus said from the head table. "And it will happen again. More and more frequently." Campers murmured among themselves. Everyone knew the rumors. Luke and his army of monsters were planning an invasion of the camp. Most of us expected it to happen this summer, but no one knew how or when. It didn't help that our attendance was down. We only had about 80 campers. 3 years ago, when I'd started, there'd been more than 100. Some had died. Some had joined Luke. Some had just disappeared. "This is a good reason for new war games," Quintus continued, a glint in his eye. "Oh wait, shoot, we know Quintus. He's not Irish. What am I doing?" "This is a good reason for new war games. For new war games," Quintus continued, a glint in his eyes. "We'll see how you all do with that tonight." "Yes," Chiron said. "Well, enough announcements. Let us bless this meal and eat." He raised his goblet. "To the gods." We all raised our glasses and repeated the blessing. Tyson and I took our plates to the bronze brazier and scraped a portion of our food into the flames. I hoped the gods liked raisin toast and Fruit Loops. "Poseidon," I said. Then I whispered, "Help me with Nico and Luke and Grover's problem." There was so much to worry about, I could have stood there all morning. But I headed back to my table. Once everyone was eating, Chiron and Grover came over to visit. Grover was bleary-eyed. His shirt was inside out. He slid his plate onto the table and slumped next to me. Tyson shifted uncomfortably.
"I will go, polish my fish ponies."
He lumbered off, leaving his breakfast half-eaten. Chiron tried for a smile. He probably wanted to look reassuring, but in centaur form he towered over me, casting a shadow across the table.
"Well, Percy, how did you sleep?"
Fine. I wondered why he asked that. Was it possible he knew something about the weird iris message I'd gotten?
"I brought Grover over,"
Chiron said,
Because I thought you two might want to, discuss matters. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some iris messages to send. I'll see you later in the day.
He gave Grover a meaningful look, then trotted out of the pavilion. What's he talking about? I asked Grover. Grover chewed his eggs. I could tell he was distracted, because he bit off the tines of his fork and chewed those down too.
He wants you to convince me,
he mumbled. Somebody else slid next to me on the bench. Annabeth. I'll tell you what it's about, she said. The Labyrinth. It was hard to concentrate on what she was saying, because everybody in the dining pavilion was stealing glances at us and whispering. And Annabeth was right next to me. Right next to me. You're not supposed to be here, I said. You need to talk, she insisted. But the rules... She knew as well as I did that campers weren't allowed to switch tables. Satyrs were different. They weren't really demigods, but the half-bloods had to sit with their cabins. I wasn't even sure what the punishment was for switching tables. I'd never seen it happen. If Mr. D had been here, he probably would have strangled Annabeth with magical grapevines or something. But Mr. D wasn't here. Chiron had already left the pavilion. Quintus looked over and raised an eyebrow, but he didn't say anything. Look, Annabeth said. Grover is in trouble. There's only one way we can figure to help him. It's the Labyrinth. That's what Clarice and I have been investigating. I shifted my weight, trying to think clearly. You mean the maze where they kept the Minotaur back in the old days? Exactly, Annabeth said. So, it's not under the King's Palace in Crete anymore? I guessed. The Labyrinth is under some building in America. See? It only took me a few years to figure things out. I knew that important places moved around with Western civilization, like Mount Olympus being over the Empire State Building, and the underworld entrance being in Los Angeles. I was feeling pretty proud of myself. Annabeth rolled her eyes. Under a building? Please, Percy. The Labyrinth is huge. It wouldn't fit under a single city, much less a single building. I thought about my dream of Nico at the river Styx. So, is the Labyrinth part of the underworld? No, Annabeth frowned. Well, there may be passages from the Labyrinth down into the underworld. I'm not sure. But the underworld is way, way down. The Labyrinth is right under the surface of the mortal world. Kind of like a second skin. It's been growing for thousands of years, lacing its way under Western cities, connecting everything together underground. You can get anywhere through the Labyrinth.
If you don't get lost, Grover muttered, and die a horrible death.
Grover, there has to be a way, Annabeth said. I got the feeling they'd had this conversation before. Clarice lived.
Barely,
Grover said.
And the other guy.
He was driven insane. He didn't die.
Oh, joy.
Grover's lower lip quivered.
That makes me feel much better.
Whoa, I said. Back up. What's this about Clarice and a crazy guy? Annabeth glanced over toward the Ares table. Clarice was watching us, like she knew what we were talking about. But then she fixed her eyes on her breakfast plate. Last year, Annabeth said, lowering her voice, Clarice went on a mission for Chiron. I remember, I said. It was secret. Annabeth nodded. Despite how serious she was acting, I was happy she wasn't mad at me anymore. And I kind of liked the fact that she'd broken the rules to come sit next to me. It was secret, Annabeth agreed, because she found Chris Rodriguez. The guy from the Hermes cabin? I remembered him from 2 years ago. We'd eavesdropped on Chris Rodriguez aboard Luke's ship, the Princess Andromeda. Chris was one of the half-bloods who'd abandoned camp and joined the Titan army. Yeah, Annabeth said. Last summer he just appeared in Phoenix, Arizona, near Clarice's mom's house. What do you mean he just appeared? He was wandering around the desert, in 120 degrees, in full Greek armor, babbling about string. String? I said. He'd been driven completely insane. Clarice brought him back to her mom's house so the mortals wouldn't institutionalize him. She tried to nurse him back to health. Chiron came out and interviewed him, but it wasn't much good. The only thing they got out of him, Luke's men have been exploring the Labyrinth. I shivered, though I wasn't exactly sure why. Poor Chris. He hadn't been that bad a guy. What could have driven him mad? I looked at Grover, who was chewing up the rest of his fork. Okay, I asked. Why were they exploring the Labyrinth? We weren't sure, Annabeth said. That's why Clarice went on a scouting expedition. Chiron kept things hushed up because he didn't want anyone panicking. He got me involved because, well, the Labyrinth has always been one of my favorite subjects. The architecture involved. Her expression turned a little dreamy. The builder, Daedalus, was a genius. But the point is, the Labyrinth has entrances everywhere. If Luke could figure out how to navigate it, he could move his army around with incredible speed. Except it's a maze, right? Full of horrible traps, Grover agreed. Dead ends, illusions, psychotic goat-killing monsters. But not if you had Ariadne's string, Annabeth said. In the old days, Ariadne's string guided Theseus out of the maze. It was a navigation instrument of some kind, invented by Daedalus, and Chris Rodriguez was mumbling about string. So Luke was trying to find Ariadne's string, I said. Why? What's he planning? Annabeth shook her head. I don't know. I thought maybe he wanted to invade camp through the maze, but that doesn't make any sense. The closest entrance Clarice found were in Manhattan, which wouldn't help Luke get past our borders. Clarice explored a little way into the tunnels, but it was very dangerous. She had some close calls. I researched everything I could find about Daedalus. I'm afraid it didn't help much. I don't understand exactly what Luke's planning, but I do know this. The Labyrinth might be the key to Grover's problem. I blinked. You think Pan is underground? It would explain why he's been impossible to find. Grover shuddered. Satyrs hate going underground. No searcher would ever try going in that place. No flowers, no sunshine, no coffee shops. But, Annabeth said, the Labyrinth can lead you almost anywhere. It reads your thoughts. It was designed to fool you, to trick you and kill you. But if you can make the Labyrinth work for you, it could lead you to the Wild God, I said. I can't do it. Grover hugged his stomach. Just thinking about it makes me want to throw up my silverware. Grover, It may be your last chance, Annabeth said. The council is serious. 1 week where you learn to tap dance. Over at the head table, Quintus cleared his throat. I got the feeling he didn't want to make a scene, but Annabeth was really pushing it, sitting at my table so long. We'll talk later. Annabeth squeezed my arm a little too hard. Convince him, will you? She turned to the Athena table, ignoring all the people who were staring at her. Grover buried his head in his hands. I can't do it, Percy. My searcher's license. And I'm going to lose it all. I'll have to start a puppet theater. Don't say that. We'll figure something out. He looked at me teary-eyed. Percy, you're my best friend. You've seen me underground, in that Cyclops' cave. Do you really think I could? His voice faltered. I remembered the Sea of Monsters, when he'd been stuck in a Cyclops' cave. He never liked underground places to begin with, but now Grover really hated them. Cyclopses gave him the creeps, too. Even Tyson. Grover tried to hide it, but Grover and I could sort of read each other's emotions because of this empathy link Grover had made between us. I knew how he felt. Grover was terrified of the big guy. I have to leave, Grover said miserably. Juniper's waiting for me. It's a good thing she finds cowards attractive. After he was gone, I looked over at Quintus. He nodded gravely, like we were sharing some dark secret. Then he went back to cutting his sausage with a dagger. What's up, Nightlight? Welcome. I'm glad to see you're here. Thank you for the frog emote. In the afternoon, I went down to the Pegasus stables to visit my friend Blackjack. Yo, boss. He capered around in his stall, his black wings buffeting the air. You bring me some sugar cubes? You know those aren't good for you, Blackjack. Yeah. So you brought some, huh? I smiled and fed him a handful. Blackjack and I went back a long way. I sort of helped rescue him from Luke's demon cruise ship a few years ago, and ever since, he insisted on repaying me with favors. So, we got any quests coming up? Blackjack said. I'm ready to fly, boss. I patted his nose. Not sure, man. Everybody keeps talking about underground mazes. Blackjack whinnied nervously. No, not for this horse. You ain't gonna be crazy enough to go in no maze, boss, are you? You'll end up in the glue factory. You may be right, Blackjack. We'll see. Blackjack crunched down his sugar cubes. He shook his mane like he was having a sugar seizure. Whoa, good stuff. Well, boss, you come to your senses and want to fly somewhere, just give a whistle. Old Blackjack and his buddies will stampede anybody for you. I told him I'd keep it in mind. Then a group of younger campers came into the stables to start their riding lessons, and I decided it was time to leave. I had a bad feeling I wasn't going to see Blackjack for a long time. That night, after dinner, Quintus had us suit up in combat armor like we were getting ready for Capture the Flag. But the mood among the campers was a lot more serious. Sometime during the day, the crates in the arena had disappeared, and I had a feeling whatever was in them had been emptied into the woods.
Right,
Quintus said, standing on the head dining table.
gather round.
He was dressed in black leather and bronze. In the torchlight, his gray hair made him look like a ghost. Mrs. O'Leary bounded happily around him, foraging for dinner scraps.
You'll be in teams of 2,
Quintus announced. When everybody started talking and trying to grab their friends, he yelled,
which have already been chosen.
"Ah!" Everybody complained.
Your goal is simple. Collect the gold laurels without dying. The wreath is wrapped in a silk package, tied to the back of one of the monsters. There are 6 monsters. Each has a silk package. Only one holds the laurels. You must find the wreath before the other teams. And, of course, you will have to slay the monster to get it, and stay alive.
The crowd started murmuring excitedly. The task sounded pretty straightforward. Hey, we'd all slain monsters before. That's what we trained for.
I will announce your partners,
Quintus said.
There will be no trading, no switching, no complaining.
Mrs. O'Leary buried her face in a plate of pizza. Quintus produced a big scroll and started reading off names. Beckendorf would be with Selena Beauregard, which Beckendorf looked pretty happy about. The Stoll brothers, Travis and Connor, would be together. No surprise. They did everything together. Clarice was with Lee Fletcher from the Apollo cabin. Melee and ranged combat combined. It would be a tough combo to beat. Quintus kept rattling off names until he said,
Percy Jackson with Annabeth Chase.
Nice. I grinned at Annabeth. Your armor is crooked, was her only comment, and she redid my straps for me.
Grover Underwood,
Quintus said,
with Tyson.
Grover just about jumped out of his goat fur.
What? But... No.
Tyson whimpered.
Must be a mistake. Goat boy.
No complaining,
Quintus ordered.
Get with your partner. You have 2 minutes to prepare.
Tyson and Grover both looked at me pleadingly. I tried to give them an encouraging nod and gesture that they should move together. Tyson sneezed. Grover started chewing nervously on his wooden club. He'll be fine, Annabeth said. Come on, let's worry about how we're going to stay alive. It was still light when we got into the woods, but the shadows from the trees made it feel like midnight. It was cold, even in summer. Annabeth and I found tracks almost immediately, scuttling marks made by something with a lot of legs. We began to follow the trail. We jumped a creek and heard some twigs snapping nearby. We crouched behind a boulder, but it was only the Stoll brothers tripping through the woods and cursing their dad was the god of thieves. But they were about as stealthy as water buffaloes. Oh, and cursing. Their dad was the god of thieves, but they were about as stealthy as water buffaloes. Once the Stolls had passed, we forged deeper into the west woods where the monsters were wilder. We were standing on a ledge overlooking a marshy pond when Annabeth tensed.
This is where we stopped looking. It took me a second to realize what she meant. Last winter, when we'd been searching for Nico D'Angelo, this is where we'd given up hope on finding him. Grover, Annabeth, and I had stood on this rock, and I'd convinced them not to tell Chiron the truth. That Nico was the son of Hades. At the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. I wanted to protect his identity. I wanted to be the one to find him and make things right for what had happened to his sister. Now, 6 months later, I hadn't even come close to finding him. It left a bitter taste in my mouth. I saw him last night, I said. Annabeth knit her eyebrows. What do you mean? I told her about the iris message. When I was done, she stared into the shadows of the woods. He's summoning the dead? That's not good. The ghost was giving him bad advice, I said, telling him to take revenge. Yeah, spirits are never good advisors. They've got their own agendas, old grudges, and they resent the living. He's going to come after me, I said. The spirit mentioned a maze. She nodded. That settles it. We have to figure out the labyrinth. Maybe, I said uncomfortably. But who sent the iris message? If Nico didn't know I was there... A branch snapped in the woods. Dry leaves rustled. Something large was moving in the trees, just beyond the ridge. That's not the Stoll brothers, Annabeth whispered. Together we drew our swords. We got to Zeus's Fist, a huge pile of boulders in the middle of the West Woods. It was a natural landmark where campers often rendezvoused on hunting expeditions, but now there was nobody around. Over there, Annabeth whispered. No, wait, I said. Behind us. It was weird. Scuttling noises seemed to be coming from several different directions. We were circling the boulders, our swords drawn, when somebody right behind us said, Hi! We whirled around, and the tree nymph Jupiter yelped. Put those down! She protested. Triads don't like sharp blades, okay? Juniper, Annabeth exhaled. What are you doing here? I live here. I lowered my sword. In the boulders? She pointed toward the edge of the clearing. In the juniper. Duh. It made sense, and I felt kind of stupid. I'd been hanging around dryads for years, but I never really talked to them much. I knew they couldn't go very far from their tree, which was their source of life, but I didn't know much else. Are you guys busy? Juniper asked. Well, I said, we're in the middle of this game against a bunch of monsters, and we're trying not to die. We're not busy, Annabeth said. What's wrong, Juniper? Juniper sniffled. She wiped her silky sleeve under her eyes. It's Grover. He seems so distraught. All year he's been out looking for Pan, and every time he comes back, it's worse. I thought maybe at first he was seeing another tree. No, Annabeth said as Juniper started crying. I'm sure that's not it. He had a crush on a blueberry bush once, Juniper said miserably. Juniper, Annabeth said. Grover would never even look at another tree. He's just stressed out about his searcher's license. He can't go underground, she protested. You can't let him. Annabeth looked uncomfortable. It might be the only way to help him. If we just knew where to start. Juniper wiped a green tear off her cheek. About that. Another rustle in the woods, and Juniper yelled, Hide! Before I could ask why, she went poof into green mist. Annabeth and I turned. Coming out of the woods was a glistening amber insect, 10 feet long, with jagged pincers, an armored tail, and a stinger as long as my sword. A scorpion. Tied to its back was a red silk package. One of us gets behind it, Annabeth said as the thing clattered towards us. Cuts off its tail while the other distracts it in front. I'll take point, I said. You've got the invisibility hat. She nodded. We'd fought together so many times, we knew each other's moves. We could do this. Easy. But it all went wrong when the other 2 scorpions appeared from the woods. 3? Annabeth said. That's not possible. The whole woods, and half the monsters are coming at us. I swallowed. 1 we could take. 2, with a little luck. 3? Doubtful. The scorpions scurried towards us, whipping their barbed tails like they'd come here just to kill us. Annabeth and I put our backs against the nearest boulder. Climb, I said. No time, she said. She was right. Scorpions were already surrounding us. They were so close I could see their hideous mouths foaming, anticipating a nice, juicy meal of demigods. Look out! Annabeth parried away a stinger with the flat of her blade. I stabbed with Riptide, but the scorpion backed out of range. We clambered sideways along the boulders, but the scorpions followed us. I slashed at another one, but going on the offensive was too dangerous. If I went for the body, the tail stabbed downward. If I went for the tail, the thing's pincers came from either side and tried to grab me. All we could do was defend, and we wouldn't be able to keep that up for very long. I took another step sideways, and suddenly, there was nothing behind me. It was a crack between 2 of the largest boulders. Something I'd probably passed by 1,000,000 times, but... In here, I said. Annabeth sliced at a scorpion, then looked at me like I was crazy. In there? It's too narrow. I'll cover you. Go. She ducked behind me and started squeezing between the boulders. Then she yelped and grabbed my armor straps. And suddenly, I was tumbling into a pit that hadn't been there a moment before. I could see the scorpions above us, the purple evening sky and the trees, and then the hole shut, like the lens of a camera, and we were in complete darkness. Our breathing echoed against stone. It was wet and cold. I was sitting on a bumpy floor that seemed to be made of bricks. I lifted Riptide. The faint glow of the blade was just enough to illuminate Annabeth's frightened face, and the mossy stone walls on either side of us. Where are we? Annabeth said. Safe from scorpions, anyway. I tried to sound calm, but I was freaking out. The crack between the boulders couldn't have led into a cave. I would have known if there was a cave here. I was sure of it. It was like the ground had opened up and swallowed us. All I could think of was the fissure in the dining room pavilion where those skeletons had been consumed last summer. I wondered if the same thing had happened to us. I lifted my sword again for light. "It's a long room," I muttered, and Beth gripped my arm. "It's not a room. It's a corridor." She was right. The darkness felt emptier in front of us. There was a warm breeze, like in subway tunnels, only it felt older. More dangerous, somehow. I started forward, but Annabeth stopped me. "Don't take another step," she warned. "We need to find the exit." She sounded really scared now. "It's okay," I promised. "It's right." I looked up and realized I couldn't see where we'd fallen in. The ceiling was solid stone. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions. Annabeth's hand slipped into mine. Under different circumstances, I would have been embarrassed, but here in the dark, I was glad to know she was there. It was about the only thing I was sure of. "2 steps back," she advised. We stepped backward together, like we were in a minefield. "Okay," she said. "Help me examine the walls." "What for?" "The mark of Daedalus," she said, as if that was supposed to make sense. Okay. What kind of—" "Got it," she said with relief. She set her hand on the wall and pressed against a tiny fissure, which began to glow blue. A Greek symbol appeared. The ancient Greek delta. The roof slid open and we saw a night sky. Stars blazing. It was a lot darker than it should have been. Metal ladder rungs appeared in the side of the wall, leading up, and I could hear people yelling our names.
"Percy! Annabeth!"
Tyson's voice bellowed the loudest, but others were calling out too. I looked nervously at Annabeth. Then we began to climb. We made our way around the rocks and ran into Clarice and a bunch of other campers carrying torches. "Where have you two been?" Clarice demanded. "We've been looking forever." "But we were only gone a few minutes," I said. Chiron trotted up, followed by Tyson and Grover.
"Percy!
Tyson said.
You are okay?"
"We're fine," I said. "We fell in a hole." The others looked at me skeptically, then at Annabeth. "Honest," I said. "There were 3 scorpions after us, so we ran and hid in the rocks. But we were only gone a minute." "You've been missing for almost an hour," Chiron said. "The game is over." "Yeah," Grover muttered. "We would have won, but a cyclops sat on me."
"Was an accident,"
Tyson protested, and then he sneezed. Clarice was wearing the golden laurels, but she didn't even brag about winning them, which wasn't like her. "A hole?" she said suspiciously. Annabeth took a deep breath. She looked around at the other campers. "Chiron, maybe we should talk about this at the big house." Clarice gasped. "You found it, didn't you?" Annabeth bit her lip. Yeah, we did." A bunch of campers started asking questions, looking about as confused as I was. But Chiron raised his hands for silence. "Tonight is not the right time, and this is not the right place." He stared at the boulders, as if he'd just noticed how dangerous they were. "All of you, back to your cabins. Get some sleep. A game well played, but curfew is past." There was a lot of mumbling and complaints, but the campers drifted off, talking amongst themselves and giving me suspicious looks. "This explains a lot," Clarice said. "It explains what Luke is after." "Wait a second," I said. "What do you mean? What did we find?" Annabeth turned towards me, her eyes dark with worry. "An entrance to the labyrinth. An invasion route straight into the heart of camp."
Is anybody else happy I gave Tyson a like the cute kind of sneeze? I don't know. Maybe I should do a poll. Would you like Tyson to have the cute kind of sneeze or the kind that's like abruptly loud and overly exaggerated? Also, frickin' aw. Circumstances not so great, but Percy and Annabeth were holding hands. Is anybody else as happy about that as I am? You'd prefer the overly loud one? Gosh. I can do some big ones. Scream kind of sneeze. Have you guys ever had a sneeze that hurt? You guys know what I'm talking about? I know. I can do it louder and bigger, but remember, this is meant to be a chill stream. My internet died, but I'm back. All the time. You sneeze? You have sneezes that hurt all the time? No. No, I just meant like an actual whale. No sneeze. Just scream. Please. Yeah, my internet's been giving me some trouble tonight too. I've had 4 messages pop up throughout the stream saying that I've dropped frames, which is very odd because all I do is stream this, my face, and the audio. You know, it's not as heavy on the CPU or the connect, or it's not as heavy on the CPU as like gaming and whatnot, I don't think. But I believe it's an internet issue, not the CPU or nothing. Yes, and I lose a millimeter off my height each time. I'm only 3 feet tall now. Snap, dude. Keep sneezing. See if you can hit a world record, right? World's squattiest man. You can do it, dude. I believe in you. Hang, guys. I kind of forgot about that, but it makes sense, right? There has to be like an entrance to the labyrinth in the actual camp for the stakes to be raised up a notch, and to force them into the labyrinth to figure out the labyrinth before Luke and his goobers can. It's exciting stuff, dude. Do you think Luke, because I mean they've been investigating the labyrinth for a while now. How close are Luke and his goobers to finding that string? See if you can reach 1 centimeter. Yes, please. See if you can like wind up 2-dimensional. That would be my challenge to you. Somebody get this man some pepper and feathers. But just as wide as you remember. Yep. I want you to be flat Stanley, but like opposite, right? Instead of the 2D being like the forward and back, the front and back, you're squatted inward. You're just squatted down. So if you were seen from a bird's eye view directly above you, nothing would seem off. Nothing at all. But as soon as you start getting closer, you realize soon enough that my man's a photograph. Shoot, dude. Be wild. Good sneezes. You know, normally I don't really do that. When it says like, oh, this person sneezed or this person screamed, I feel like I go back and forth whether or not I actually follow through with that direction and do it myself. Because I believe in your guys' imaginations, right? If I say Tyson sneezed, we can imagine what that might be like. But I don't know. Occasionally I like to give it a shot. Test my metal. Well, shoot, guys. That turned out to be a longer chapter than I'd imagined, and took a little while to get us going and started. Yeah, I do apologize, but I mentioned at the start that this was going to be a really short stream. So we're going to hop off in about 7 minutes. So I'm going to switch it to... So I'm going to do the outro in about like 5 minutes. Yeah. Just so you guys know, there is a bit of a countdown going. Yeah, I want to get myself to bed by 11 latest, like actually laying down and snoozing. Yeah, like that. Chimperer's got the right idea. Thank you, Colio. Little do you guys know, I actually use a book as a face mask at night. It's a real thing. I find it comforting, you know. I just like breathe in the book throughout the night. And I soak up the literature energy. The words just kind of seep into me. Sometimes I wake up and the pages are suddenly blank. I think it might have absorbed either the ink or the words themselves. Right? Do you think that's more of like a magical thing, or literally like the heat from my mouth is melting all the ink and it's just kind of soaking into me? I like the idea that you are like cat dog and just have two heads. That's true. It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare that you see my lower half. It could be that case. Would you guys how much would you guys flip out if I just like like dove downwards and all of a sudden flying up was another me, the other half of me? I'm not saying that is the case. That's because it's it's definitely not. I mean, why? Drop a pog word. I'd say it's certainly worth it. Shoot. I'm wondering if I'll actually have time to shower tonight. I have to be a quick in and out. I really want to keep reading though. I will say I am a little exhausted though. I suppose I'm grateful that I could give all my energy for the one chapter and be all set. Let's see. Yeah, what, so since we are getting towards it, anybody have a favorite part of the chapter? Not gonna lie, I think my favorite part was the table scene, with Grover, Annabeth, and Percy. That was just a solid encounter. It was heckin' cute. Then Annabeth got up and didn't care about no rules, sat next to Percy. I like how it like detailed. It was like, listen, when I say she's sitting right next to me, she was right next to me, dude. I think it's cute. And yeah, Grover's lines in that one too. I find it fun when Grover gets like worried or anxious to the point of nigh sobbing or near sobbing. I think that's a fun version of his voice to get to do. There also was like just enough Tyson, right? There was like it was like little pepperings of Tyson, right? Thought that was nice too. I do still feel like insecure about like Clarice's voice. I have no idea, dude, what to do for that. Because my idea is just to make like my voice higher pitched and raspy, but even that in of itself is a little tough, considering like whether or not I could stand to just flip her accent or something, right? Because I feel like the women in the story deserve like a little bit of variation. Because a lot of them, I think it was especially apparent. I did my best, but I think it was especially apparent in what's her name? Grover's galley friend, Juniper. Heck, remembered it before I even got to the page. I think it was especially evident in that encounter between Annabeth and Juniper. I got the one voice, dude. I got the one girl voice. Which might not be a terrible thing. But I think the way that I could expand it, right, is doing my female voice but with varying accents. Like I could try give like one of the evil ones a Russian accent of some kind. I could even try my hand at the French one again. We'll see. I actually kind of dig the idea of Juniper being Canadian. Yeah? I don't know. We'll see. Like I think I've said this in the past, like most of the voices, unless they've been like solid characters throughout the series, are up for alterations as I kind of figure out their voice as I go along. Anywho, that was my little rant about about how I felt my performance was. Altogether though, heck, this was just a nice night. A good story time. I hope the story relaxed you guys. I know it got a little intense there towards the end, but you know, who isn't bettered by a little bit of being read to at the end of your day? Have I joined the Titans side yet? Sinful, I do apologize. This is not a choose your own adventure book. They are clearly the ones in the right. I mean, they make some good points. They do. They make some solid points. I don't know. I'm in the field of that. The way that the Titans are going about it is fairly evil and bad. And they're doing the whole thing where like out with what is current and bring back like the old. It's odd. It's like a flip of the saying, out with the old and in with the new. It's out with the current, in with the old. But I do believe in what they say about how, you know, the gods have their flaws and they're not doing everything perfect, of course. They're powerful beings, but they're not perfect. And I think if the Titans took their place, it would be a lot of the same, right? There would still be problems in their way of ruling. But it depends on what I would want to know is would the Titans work harder than the current gods to, I don't know, to do their best at doing the god thing. There's like one good god. Hestia. Well, I mean, I feel like all the gods have a good and bad side, right? Some of them are worse than others. Ares, a little bit of a meanie head. But even he has his moments, right? Of heroism. Heroism and goodness. All I'm saying is, like, the gods, the Titans, all that mythos was based on us, right? Mankind. So, in doing that, they inherently have good sides to them and bad sides. Yeah, dude, big meanie. Heck. Yeah, dude, the Greek mythos. Some good stuff. I feel like it's neat that we can draw parallels from Greek mythos, because it's not as granular an idea as some other religions, you know? It's a little bit easier to grasp, right? There's these beings in the sky that are way stronger and more powerful than us. But they're a lot like us. They're inherently like an authority because they can snap their fingers and we be vaporized. But they're easier to grasp, right? And understand and fathom and draw correlations. Hey, what's up, May? Welcome. Welcome to the end of the stream. I'm glad you can make it. We are moving towards the end here. I'll tell you what, I said I would get off at 10:30, but we are going to instead aim for a hour and a half marker. The hour and a half marker for the time of the stream. I do apologize, guys. I took me a while when I got back to figure out dinner and make myself a healthy smoothie. Get some tea and whatnot. Decompress a little. But I have to be in bed by 11 latest, or don't have to, right? We all got choices, but I want to be in bed by 11 because I got to get up at 7 a.m. tomorrow. And I'd like to get my 8 hours, if at all possible. But it does kind of stink. I don't know. I noticed like a bit of a viewer spike. I think my streams tend to thrive once it's past like 10, right? Because that for a lot of people is their, or in my mind, I imagine like that for a lot of people is their like end of day time, where they can throw on a nice read and stream and listen to the dulcet tones of my voice. It seems like resting is actually important. Could be good. Oh, it's 7:30 where you are. Yeah, that's another thing is the later I go, it gets to be like the early nighttime, like late evening for others, which is also a good time for folks to drop by. I dare say. Nice, silly. So you got some time before you gotta hit the hay. Me, however, I'm drinking sleepy time tea right now. Which means I legitimately am gonna be like flopping in that bed over there. Pretty much minutes after the stream. My tea is cold. Yeah, and it's still tasty. It's nice tea, but it is no longer as soothing as it could be. I feel like I don't know. I think I'm overthinking. I feel like my voice is a little bit more strained on nights I have practice. I do a lot of heavy breathing since we do a lot of the conditioning stuff, and I wind up just going all throughout it. And I imagine that might take away from I don't know, the quality of my voice. It has a lot of tea in it. Hey, look, you can see yourself. You're that camera right there. Do you see that green dot? That's you guys. Pretty neat, huh? It is kind of odd that I don't know. I know a fair amount of these the peeps who chill in chat, but for a lot of you guys, I don't know. You're these names without a face for me. I get to know you guys better, which is as each stream passes, which is super cool. But man, I don't know. Ultimately, there's still a bit of disconnect, you know, because I do think of you and see you as May, and an image might pop up in my head of what you might look like, but ultimately, yeah, the folks that I don't know personally are kind of just a webcam. Not to take away from you as an individual. You guys are still awesome. But I just wanted to comment on that. Just something that I'm recognizing from my perspective. Yeah, guys, you guys are nothing but a webcam. Get out of here. Sorry, not meant to be in all caps. Oh, thank you, May. I think you're awesome too. You are, in fact, awesome. More awesome than a possum. It's okay, dude. I leave caps on every now and then, or hit the key by accident. I feel like, you know, in this like technological age, there's a lot of people who've run into that problem. Yeah, for as long as computers have been a thing, I guess. Yeah, dude, don't worry about it. It's okay. I think I even disabled the whole because Nightbot used to jump in and be like, "Oi, what you doing typing in all caps there, huh? You better stop that. You better stop." But I removed that because I don't know. You guys can talk in all caps if you so please. I tend to see it as just like, I don't know, a more excited way of putting the text out there. Ah! Ah! I cannot bring I will not bring myself to scream for realsies, but I can give you a. Dang, I think that was the loudest, most intense scream I've ever mustered. Good comment. Heck yeah. Caps gang. Well, guys, shoot. Thanks for, bringing me some smiles tonight. You know? After a hard day, doing something that I care about and love, and, yeah, winding up with folks who watch, like, typing stuff that leads me to smile. That's a diggity darn blessing, and I thank you guys for it. I pray that I was able to bring you guys some enjoyment as well. Thank you for a relaxing and genuinely good time. I apologize. It's such a short stream, or I want to keep going, but alas, work on the morrow. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I love you guys bunches, and as always, be sure to take the merriment we mustered tonight. Hold it close to your heart. Let it bring a smile to your face. And bring that smile with you to bed. Maybe you'll wake up with it in the morning. I sure hope so. I love you guys bunches. And yes, mustard. Keep on swaying, my wildflowers. Till next time. See you tomorrow!